Picture a vessel in open water with calm seas and a clear sky. The engine is running fine. The radar shows nothing for miles. The crew is going about a completely normal afternoon. Then the compass needle starts spinning on its own. The radio fills with static, then with a sound that nobody on board can explain. 20 minutes later, the ship is gone. No wreckage, no oil slick. No mayday call that anyone can find, just an empty patch of ocean where a multi-ton vessel used to be. For decades, the story we have all heard is the Bermuda Triangle, a stretch of water between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico that supposedly swallows ships and planes whole. But the Bermuda Triangle is not unique, and it is not even the most dangerous patch of water on the planet. It is simply the most famous. Around the world, there are at least 4 other zones with disappearance rates, unexplained instrument failures, and body counts that rival or exceed it, and almost nobody talks about them. The Bermuda Triangle itself earned its reputation honestly. In December 1945, 5 Navy torpedo bombers, call sign Flight 19, took off from Fort Lauderdale on a routine training run and never returned. The flight leader's last confirmed radio transmission described instruments failing and the ocean looking wrong, not blue water, but something he couldn't place. A rescue seaplane sent after them, a mariner with 13 men aboard, vanished as well that same night in the same general patch of water. 6 aircraft and 27 men, gone in a matter of hours, with no wreckage ever recovered for any of them. That single incident is the reason the Bermuda Triangle became a household name. But here is what most people never get told. The U.S. Coast Guard, the same agency that has spent decades fielding questions about it, officially states that the Bermuda Triangle does not have a higher rate of unexplained loss than any other heavily trafficked stretch of ocean. Statistically, by their own published position, it is unremarkable. So if the most famous disappearance zone on Earth is, by the numbers, nothing special, where should you actually be worried? That is the real question this video answers. Today we are going past the Bermuda Triangle completely into 5 other maritime and near maritime dead zones that the statistics cannot explain away nearly as easily. Places where ships vanish, crews disappear from locked cabins, and investigators sent to solve the mystery become part of the mystery themselves. We will get into the actual ships, the actual people, the actual Navy reports, and the actual theories, the scientific ones and the ones that still keep researchers up at night. If you are into unexplained history, stick around, because by the end of this you will never look at a flat, calm ocean the same way again. And if this is your kind of content, hit subscribe, because we cover one of these every single week. Mystery #1, the Dragon's Triangle. Let's start with the one almost nobody outside of Japan has heard of. The Dragon's Triangle, sometimes called the Devil's Sea, or in Japanese, Ma no Umi. The Dragon's Triangle sits in the Pacific Ocean, roughly 100 kilometers off the coast of Japan near Miyake-jima, and it stretches out toward Iwo Jima and Guam. Japanese fishermen have told stories about this stretch of water for centuries, long before anyone in the West had drawn a triangle on a map near Bermuda. The legends describe sudden storms appearing out of nowhere, waters that boil without explanation, and ships that sail in and are never seen again. For a long time, this was treated the way most maritime folklore is treated, as superstition passed down by sailors who needed an explanation for bad luck and bad weather. Then the disappearances started showing up in official records. Between 1949 and 1954, the Japanese government documented the loss of more than 8 vessels in this region, along with roughly 100 crew members. These were not small fishing boats blown off course in a storm nobody saw coming. These were registered ships with trained crews operating in a known shipping region. The losses became frequent enough and strange enough that the Japanese government did something most countries never bother to do for a stretch of unlucky water. They commissioned an official investigation. In 1952, a research vessel called the Kayo Maru no 5 was sent out specifically to study the anomaly, to take readings, log conditions, and try to find a scientific explanation for what was happening to ships in the area. The Kayo Maru no 5 sailed into the Dragon's Triangle with a full scientific crew on board. It never came back. No distress signal was ever received. No wreckage large enough to confirm what happened was ever recovered. The ship that was sent to solve the mystery became one of its most famous victims. They went looking for the answer, and instead, they became the question. So what is actually happening out there? Unlike the Bermuda Triangle, which sits in relatively calm, well-mapped Atlantic waters, the Dragon's Triangle sits directly on top of one of the most geologically violent regions on Earth. This is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of tectonic boundaries responsible for roughly 90% of the world's earthquakes and the vast majority of its active volcanoes. Underwater volcanic activity in this region is constant. Entire islands have appeared and disappeared within the same decade as a result of underwater eruptions. Most famously, the temporary island that briefly rose near Iwo Jima in the 1950s before sinking back beneath the waves. This matters because underwater volcanic eruptions do something specific and dangerous to the water above them. Massive eruptions release huge plumes of gas, and when that gas reaches the surface, it can dramatically reduce the density of the water. In some documented cases, by enough to compromise a ship's buoyancy. A vessel that sails directly over a large enough gas plume can, in theory, lose enough buoyant support to sink far faster than its crew could ever react to. There would be no time for a distress call, no time to launch a lifeboat. The ship would simply go down, and the gas plume that caused it would dissipate within minutes, leaving investigators with calm water and no explanation. Combine that with frequent seismic activity capable of generating sudden, unpredictable waves, and you have a region where a ship can sail through clear weather and still never be seen again. Whether that fully accounts for every disappearance, including the loss of a dedicated research vessel with an experienced crew, is something nobody has ever definitively proven. Mystery #2 the Sargasso Sea now. Let's head from the Pacific into the middle of the Atlantic to a place that does not even have a coastline. Welcome to the Sargasso Sea. The Sargasso Sea is one of the strangest bodies of water on the planet because it is the only sea on Earth with no land border at all. It is defined entirely by ocean currents, bounded on all sides by the four arms of the North Atlantic Gyre, the Gulf Stream to the west, the North Atlantic Current to the north, the Canary Current to the east, and the North Atlantic Equatorial Current to the south. These currents rotate clockwise and effectively trap the water inside, along with anything floating in it, in a massive, slow-moving whirlpool roughly the size of the continental United States. What makes the Sargasso visually unforgettable is the seaweed it's named after, sargassum, a free-floating brown algae that mats together on the surface in enormous golden rafts. Sailors crossing it for the first time often describe the eerie sensation of sailing through what looks like a floating meadow in the middle of the open ocean. But the real danger of the Sargasso is not the weed. It is the wind, or rather, the almost complete lack of it. Because the Sargasso sits inside a high-pressure system, it experiences long stretches of dead calm. Conditions that age of sail navigators dreaded so much they had a name for it, the horse latitudes, supposedly because becalmed ships sometimes had to throw their horses overboard to conserve dwindling fresh water. A sailing ship caught without wind in the Sargasso could sit motionless for days or weeks, slowly running out of food and water, with currents gently pulling it deeper into a region with no consistent shipping lanes and no land in any direction. This is the water where the most famous ghost ship in maritime history was found. The Mary Celeste was a Canadian-built brigantine that departed New York in November 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy, under Captain Benjamin Briggs, carrying his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, and a crew of 8. On December 4th of that year, a passing ship spotted the Mary Celeste drifting near the Azores on the eastern edge of the Sargasso region under partial sail with nobody at the helm. A boarding party found the ship in a condition that has fueled theories for over 150 years. The cargo, 1,800 barrels of crude alcohol, was largely intact. There was food and fresh water still on board. The captain's personal belongings, including his charts, were untouched. The ship's single lifeboat was missing, along with every single person who had been aboard. No bodies were ever recovered. No distress note was ever found. The last entry in the ship's log was dated 10 days earlier and described nothing unusual. The crew, the family, and the lifeboat had simply vanished, leaving a fully provisioned, perfectly seaworthy ship to drift on its own. The leading theory among maritime historians today is far less supernatural than the legend suggests, but it is no less unsettling. Investigators believe that a buildup of alcohol fumes from the cargo, combined with a rough patch of weather, may have caused the captain to fear an imminent explosion. Believing the ship was about to blow, Briggs may have ordered everyone into the lifeboat, intending to stay tethered to the Mary Celeste until the danger passed. If that tow line snapped in open, becalmed water, with no wind to help the lifeboat catch back up to the ship, the result would be exactly what was found: an empty, intact vessel, and a small lifeboat full of people slowly drifting away into nothing, with no way to call for help and no way to be seen. Now, before we head into the back half of this list, including a region with a body count that puts both of the previous two to shame, I want to ask you something. If you found a ghost ship adrift with a fully cooked meal still on the table and no crew anywhere on board, would you board it to investigate, or would you radio it in and keep moving? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if deep ocean mysteries are your thing, get subscribed, because we are mapping every one of these dead zones, one disappearance at a time. Now, back into the void. Mystery #3 the Michigan Triangle. Our third stop does not require an ocean at all. Welcome to the Michigan Triangle. Sitting inside one of the 5 Great Lakes, roughly between Loudonton, Michigan, Benton Harbor, and Manitowoc, Wisconsin, it seems almost absurd on paper. Lake Michigan is a freshwater lake, fully enclosed by land, with shipping routes that have been mapped and monitored for well over a century. And yet this stretch of water has its own catalog of disappearances that mirror the open ocean cases almost exactly. The same instrument failures, the same vanishing vessels, and at least one case that reads less like a maritime accident and more like a locked room mystery. In April 1937, the freighter O.M. McFarland was crossing Lake Michigan under the command of Captain George R. Donner. By all accounts, it was a normal voyage. Late in the evening, Donner told his crew he was heading to his cabin to rest and gave instructions to be woken when the ship reached Port Washington, Wisconsin. Roughly 3 hours later, a crew member went to wake him. The cabin door was locked from the inside. When the crew finally broke it open, the room was empty. Donner's clothes, his glasses, even his false teeth were left behind, exactly where he'd have left them to sleep. The porthole was far too small for an adult to fit through. There was no sign of struggle, no note, and no body. The crew searched the entire ship from bow to stern. Captain Donner was simply gone, vanished from a locked cabin in the middle of a freshwater lake, with the rest of his crew still on board the entire time. To this day, there is no accepted explanation for how a man disappears from a room that nobody else entered. The Michigan Triangle's official disappearance count includes commercial vessels, private boats, and at least one aircraft, a Northwest Airlines Flight 2501, that vanished over the lake in 1950 with 58 people on board. Despite a search involving the Coast Guard and dozens of vessels, the wreckage was not located until decades later, and even then, only fragments and a small number of remains were ever recovered. An outcome strikingly similar to the open ocean cases we have already covered, just in fresh water instead of salt. Researchers who study the lake point to something genuinely unique to the Great Lakes: seiches, which are essentially standing waves that form inside an enclosed body of water, usually triggered by sudden shifts in atmospheric pressure. A seiche can cause water levels to rise and fall by several feet in a matter of minutes, with almost no visible warning on the surface beforehand. Combine that with Lake Michigan's notoriously unpredictable weather, capable of shifting from calm to violent in under an hour, and you have a relatively small enclosed body of water that is, per square mile, arguably more dangerous to shipping than the open Atlantic. Mystery #4 the Bennington Triangle and the US Cyclops. From a lake, we go to dry land, because the next entry on this list will connect directly back to the deep ocean in a way you would not expect. Tucked into the southwestern corner of Vermont is a roughly 200 square mile patch of wilderness known as the Bennington Triangle, centered around Glastonbury Mountain. Unlike every other entry on this list, the Bennington Triangle has no shipping lanes and no ocean. What it has is a documented string of disappearances between 1945 and 1950, including hikers, hunters, and at least one elderly woman who vanished from a moving vehicle on a public road that has never been satisfactorily explained. Search parties covering Glastonbury Mountain, including bloodhounds and aircraft, have repeatedly come up with absolutely nothing. No remains, no clothing, no trace. Local geologists have pointed out that the region sits on a dense bed of metamorphic rock with unusually high mineral content, and some researchers have theorized that this could interfere with magnetic compasses and disorient hikers badly enough to explain at least some of the losses. It is a theory, not a proven mechanism, and it does not explain every case. But here's the connection back to the ocean. This same idea that certain regions on Earth contain mineral deposits or magnetic anomalies capable of throwing off navigation equipment is one of the leading scientific theories for why both the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle produce so many reports of malfunctioning compasses and dead electronics in the moments before a disappearance. And speaking of the Bermuda Triangle directly, the single deadliest documented loss connected to it is not a small fishing boat or a private yacht. It is the Cyclops, a U.S. Navy collier, essentially a massive cargo ship built to haul coal, that departed Barbados in March 1918, bound for Baltimore. It never arrived. No distress call was ever sent. No wreckage has ever been conclusively identified to this day, despite the ship being over 500 feet long and carrying 306 people, the single largest loss of life in United States Navy history that did not involve combat. A naval court of inquiry could not determine a cause. Theories ranged from structural failure under an overloaded cargo of manganese ore to a sudden rogue wave, to enemy action during the final year of World War I, though no record of a German attack in that location has ever surfaced. To this day, the Navy officially lists the disappearance of the Cyclops as unsolved. Mystery #5 the Bass Strait for our final stop. We are leaving the water completely, but the disappearance we are about to cover is so tied to maritime-style vanishing that investigators still classify it alongside ship losses. Welcome to the Bass Strait, the stretch of water separating mainland Australia from the island of Tasmania. On the evening of October 21, 1978, a 20-year-old pilot named Frederick Valentik took off in a small Cessna 182 for a routine training flight across the Bass Strait toward King Island. Roughly halfway through the flight, Valentik radioed Melbourne Air Traffic Control to report an unidentified aircraft flying close to his position. One he described as having a shiny metallic surface and a green light, moving at high speed in ways his own aircraft could not match. Air Traffic Control asked him to confirm the type of aircraft. Valentik responded that it did not appear to be a conventional aircraft at all. His final transmissions grew increasingly tense. He reported that the object was orbiting him, that his engine was running rough, and at one point stated, in a transmission that has been replayed and analyzed for over 4 decades, that the object was hovering and that it was not an aircraft. The recording ends with 17 seconds of an unidentified metallic, scraping sound, and then nothing. No further transmissions were ever received. An extensive air and sea search of the Bass Strait turned up no wreckage, no oil slick, no debris field, nothing. Frederick Valentik and his aircraft were never found. The official Australian government investigation into the disappearance remains open to this day, technically unsolved, with the cause listed as undetermined. Aviation investigators have proposed that Valentik, a relatively inexperienced pilot flying at night over featureless open water, may have become spatially disoriented and entered an inverted dive, mistaking the lights of his own aircraft reflected off the water or even his own upside-down horizon for an object in the sky. It is a plausible, grounded explanation. It is also one that requires you to ignore the 17 seconds of unexplained metallic sound captured on an official government recording. a piece of audio that has never been definitively identified by Australian investigators or anyone else in over 40 years. So that is 5 regions, 3 oceans, 1 freshwater lake, and 1 stretch of land, all sharing the same signature, vanishing without wreckage, instruments failing in the final moments, and investigators who go looking for answers, sometimes becoming casualties themselves. The Bermuda Triangle gets the documentaries and the Hollywood movies, but it is genuinely just one entry in a much longer, much stranger list. Some of these cases have real scientific explanations sitting right underneath the mystery: underwater gas plumes, seiches, magnetic mineral deposits, spatial disorientation. Others, like a captain vanishing from a locked cabin or 17 seconds of metal scraping against nothing, still do not have one. Which of these 5 scared you the most? Let me know in the comments, because next week we are going even deeper into the wreck sites nobody has been able to fully explore, and the one disappearance that connects 3 of these triangles together in a way most people have never noticed. Until then, keep your eyes on the horizon and your hand near the radio.